just grab those three?
Yeah.
Okay, make yourselves comfortable. Great, fantastic that we still have audience, although it's later in the afternoon, and that we still have you at home following us online. And I'm really delighted to have so many fantastic guests here. And just our host of today said that I would do the introduction. I think actually that it's best if I give you the voice and you get the chance to introduce yourself. Ekaterina, do you want to start?
Yes, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Not so long ago, actually, I was sitting on the other side of the stage and I was watching the show. And today I'm happy really to be the speaker. So I'm Ekaterina. I'm one of the founders of Kewazo. We are doing robotics in construction. We started the company in 2018, and all of us graduated from this university, and therefore we are happy to give our opinion and to support the community.
Thank you so much. Then I'll just pass on to Michael.
All right, I'm Michael Persson. I'm from Technical University of Denmark, where I work at sort of the same, the counterparty of TUM Unternehmertum. And I work with our internal funding programs for researchers who want to innovate and make a startup, as well as for student startups. I have a background in industry, working in an internal startup in the energy industry.
And then finally, last but not least.
Yeah, I'm Katja Pahnke. I'm Managing Director of Eindhoven Engine, and that's a company we built together with the University of Eindhoven of Technology, TNO, like a Fraunhofer Institute in the Netherlands, and Fontis Hogescholen, so University for Applied Sciences. And we set it up to accelerate, in fact, innovation, since we're doing research in a very linear way, and we need an organization who can face the pace we need to be competitive.
Thank you so much. So I hope all of you agree that we have an amazing panel of people who do the innovation and that shape innovation ecosystem. And I think this is a great pool of ideas to better understand and better tackle the big problem. What can we actually do it in Europe? So we've already heard our president in his opening speech speaking about we're in some sort of special situation, perhaps a more competitive situation than we thought a while back ago. And so the question is, how can we actually achieve a technological sovereignty in Europe? And also, how can we translate all those amazing innovations that we have at all our institutions and bridge this gap between the laboratory research institutions, then eventually to the market. And this is the big topic that we'll approach today. And I think before we can actually start approaching the topic and thinking also about potential solutions, what we'll do, first let's take a look at the status quo. And let's take a look at what already is working out really well, but perhaps also what are challenges. And Ekaterina, I would like to first open this round with you, because you've done that already. So you have, and you're in the process of commercializing a really complex technology. So perhaps you can give us some insights, what you think is going well, but also what challenges you have faced, and perhaps also other entrepreneurial talents that I'm sure you know and you hang out with.
Yes, of course. We'll be very happy to share. So our experience is that we are in robotics, and we combine hardware and software technology. Why is it important? Because I think that for software startups, it's a little bit easier to commercialize their innovation. And for us, what worked really great is the ecosystem of this university. And I think without it, I think it would be very hard for us to survive. So what I mean is that from the beginning, we had a platform where we could meet other co-founders, where we could share our ideas, but we also have received quite soon an office space at Technical University of Munich. And then in Germany, there is a program which is called Exist, which gives you for 1 year 130,000 euro, and it was a great help And I think that is why we could have a little bit of boost before going to our customers, because especially if you are in hardware, in robotics, you need to have a prototype which you can test on site, at least, and this is, of course, expensive. I think this worked well, but I can clearly see the challenges of startups in Germany. I cannot speak, of course, of the whole of Europe, but at least in Germany. And I think the biggest challenge is an access to early stage capital, and especially for technologies that will not be commercialized immediately, but have longer development cycles. And I do believe that that is why so many European startups try to get the investment from the US. We also have German, but we also have American investors. And I think getting the investment in the first place was very challenging. And I do think that if we could improve a little bit this ecosystem, it would be easier for startups to get the investment from local market instead of going to the US, for example. So.
Very important point. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I think that many would agree that access to money is definitely a challenge, and probably not just for Germany, but also other European countries. And I'm glad that we have representatives here. Michael, perhaps you can share with us a little bit, what do you think? What is the status quo based on your experiences in your ecosystem? But I know also you have lots of experiences in other contexts as well. What do you think? What is going well? What is the problem?
I think in general, entrepreneurship and startups is of course strengthening a lot these years, and that's great. And basically we have to the ecosystems has developed I mean, there's nothing like what it was 10 years ago. There was almost nothing, and that's great. I think one thing we have found that has worked well has been we have started up some very small grants for researchers when the research money sort of stops because what they do is no longer research. We give them very small grants to get them embark on a more innovation and entrepreneurial route. And we found out that these grants are quite good because they, I mean, money is just a great motivator. It's as simple as that. And with these very small grants, we get them into our ecosystem, and then we put the mentorship and the events and pitch training and whatnot onto them. And eventually also, we are starting to develop a co-founder program.
So money as a motivator and as a facilitator, yes. as you said. So interesting, and also interesting how you share with us the development. So already some positive trends. Katja, now I would be curious to learn more about your opinion. You've also seen a lot.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm working in this nice ecosystem of Brainport, is also called the smartest region of the world when you look for the patents per square meter and people. So we had a lot of smart, bright people there, but what we see that we need more entrepreneurship to commercialize these ideas. And my colleague from the Gate is also here, so helping startups and the smart guys and girls to build companies. But what our aim also is to think outside in, so to bring the knowledge of the roadmaps and the knowledge of the industry to our thinking and way of acting, to make the translation to be faster in valorization and be faster on the market, and also think outside the box. So what ideas can fail or should fail fast, perhaps, like they do in Israel. I've been there last week. But to create a culture to help innovations land faster in the market. And that, for me, the trick or I'm very convinced to bring the industry and the thinking from the outside world and the roadmaps into our way of working and acting.
And I think that's a big, ambitious goal to say, to create this culture for innovation.
Yeah.
Will you share some of your secrets with us?
So our own secret is, in fact, to disrupt our mothers in their way of doing research. since we need a different organization, a different culture, and different people. So normally at the universities we have bright technical talent, but not these entrepreneurs. So we need to get people from the outside world inside to help this transition and this change from the inside out, respecting these very bright cultures of the universities and knowledge institutes. And therefore we also with Eindhoven Engine established an own company that we can make use of the processes of our mothers when we need them, but that we can also do it in an entrepreneurial, very fast way when speed is needed. So you need both of it and to combine it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Already interesting insights. So we definitely also want to take a European perspective here. We're also here for the EuroTech Alliance. And so I tried to find out what are kind of approaches that the EU puts forward, things would be good ideas. And one approach that I personally really liked was by the European Commission's global approach to research and innovation. And they have coined a term that they call the Team Europe approach, which I think is kind of interesting because they speak a lot about building up cooperations between different research and innovation networks across Europe, but also with other places, other countries. They speak a lot about multilateral partnerships, reciprocity between institutions. And I think there could be a promise in this Team Europe approach when we speak about our own technological sovereignty. But the first question now goes to you, Michael. What do you think in your ecosystem? Could a Team Europe approach work out? And then if so, what would you think you could get out of such an approach? And also, perhaps the MENA question, what could you contribute when it's about reciprocity?
Right. If I understand it right, that part of the reciprocity is that we can use our ecosystems mutually in new ways, I think that would be great. And for example, at DTU Skylab, we have 2 teams working on something automotive. And it would be great, for example, if they could come down here, take a look into the automotive ecosystem you have here, instead of just staying in Denmark, where there's not so much automotive, in fact. It would be great, but maybe not. Maybe they will find out that they are hopelessly naive and find out what they do is not worth it. But it would be a good test, I think. So if in this way we could use each other's ecosystems more and strength, that would be nice. And for example, we could contribute with probably with life science, where we are fairly strong, and renewable energy and so on.
So what you're mentioning is actually bringing together different innovators, entrepreneurial talents, and then different industries, different markets, which I think is a very important approach when we think of, well, perhaps Germany still is larger compared to Denmark, but in Europe we do have rather small markets, right, compared to, well, we've spoken about the US already, we've spoken about China already. So that's a very interesting thought. Katja, you already mentioned a lot about bringing together industry and researchers. So I think for you also, you might have ideas how you could think this at a European scale.
Yeah, I think we can learn a lot from other countries, from other insights and ways of working. We see that a lot of new innovations come out from crossing the disciplines, bringing together that, but also what you mentioned, have crossover innovation of different domains. So we see, for example, that we can learn in the high-tech industry from the pragmatism of the agro-food industry, or that we can learn in setting up new energy systems, also learn from other industry in the mobility market and the sensors there. So I think it's important to look how to organize it, but also have an European approach and also available money to scale it. So I'm in favor, for example, for an industrial residence program, which we do really on European scale, to learn not only from other markets and disciplines, but also from other countries how to approach research and innovations.
Very interesting. So also, the two of you seem to be in favor of this Team Europe approach.
We are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But you're, of course, also builders of ecosystems. Now, Ekaterina, my question for you would be, you're perhaps more a part member, hopefully a user of an ecosystem. What do you think, such an approach, how would this change the way how startups come into existence? Is this too big? Would this be like the right scope? What do you think about the Team Europe approach?
I think the most important thing is that it becomes also practical, meaning that for startups, the most important is there is a program, there is a platform where you can really see the impact. And I think in the best way that I could illustrate it, it would be a program that we were part of. So a couple of years ago, we took a part in one of the biggest programs on a EU level for robotic startups, where they brought more than 50 startups from all over Europe from the sector of robotics. I think it was incredible. Not everyone, of course, made it to the final program. But even the startups that didn't, we still keep the relationship with them, and network is really your power. They also connected us with the industry in the other countries, such as, for example, Spain and France. And I find it really amazing. So this program worked out well. I know other programs which provide good opportunities, but simultaneously they have a very long process, bureaucratic process. So in this sense, I think many startups are discouraged because they think that they have very limited resources. They can either go, for example, and spend time on the customers or on these programs. So this should definitely become easier for startups. And on the other side, I think it's also very hard because I do understand the approach of European Union. A lot of investment lately has been made for biotech, for medtech, which is understandable with the pandemic, but also with cybersecurity. But there are other sectors which I think need attention as well. And I do think that we need more programs like this, not only for robotics, but also for other sectors. And we need more programs like this on the European level because the networking part and exchange of resources is truly great.
So when you say networking with other startups, what can you share with us? What do you get out of those networks?
I think everything, because as a startup or as a founder, you know that there are many topics that you have to learn, and sometimes you don't even know what you don't know. But there are other founders which are more experienced than we are, and on the other side, there are other founders which are just starting or they're less experienced than we are. So we form a community, and there are always the same problems. And we figured out with the time that there are patterns in development of the startup process where, especially, for example, talking from robotics perspective, we have innovation, research, production, distribution, customers. So all of this is very similar. We might be doing very different things in different sectors, but we are going exactly through the same processes. And it's very helpful if somebody shares these things, not from theoretical perspective, but from very practical perspective. And then you can take these advices, you can filter them, and some of them really helped us to go to the next stage. And the same with us. We help, at least I tend to believe that we help many founders. And I think it's great because there are not that many robotics startups in Germany. But imagine on European level, you get the networks that it's just amazing. And they brought us all together in the course of several events. It was really great.
So you're touching upon one important point, so I need to ask a follow-up question
Yes,
to
for
this.
sure.
So you now mentioned, well, there aren't as many robotic startups in Germany, and I would guess there might even be more than compared to smaller countries within the EU, so you benefit from the network effect. But what would also your advice be with respect to tackling different markets? Would you say that startups at least like those working on complex technologies as you do, they should already have at least the European market in their focus, or would you advise rather be, well, start in smaller markets, just think about like your local market or perhaps the national market?
So that's a really good question. If you would have asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said that we should really have focused in Germany, or like that the first market should be your local market. And I think, in fact, this is how we started. And if we would have stayed with this approach, we would already close the company for several reasons. So when you commercialize sometimes such complex technology as robotics, and what we do specifically, we transport different type of construction materials on industrial sites, such as, for example, gas and oil, and on construction sites. And our first approach was we would be focused on Germany, but then we saw that for particular applications that we have, in each and every market, you have a particular set of the early adopters, of the innovators. This is particular customers and users who are open for technology, they seek their technology, they want to use it. And that's how we decided to take the risk and to go to other markets. And we never regretted it, because now our robots work in United Kingdom on construction sites and refineries, and in Belgium. And we do also a lot of things in Netherlands. 2 weeks ago we had a project in Denmark, and today we are in Norway. So I do think that if I could tell something to the startups, that if you see this opportunity, you shouldn't be focused on one market. Go there and search for innovators, for early adopters. And Europe might be big, but I think a lot is happening, and it's simpler than you think. So you should definitely be taking the chances.
Thank you so much for sharing this advice and also all the recent successes, so congratulations. So I'll just quickly ask you if you have something to add, if the situation is perhaps different in Denmark or in the Netherlands. Would this also be the advice that you give to members of your ecosystem? Anything you want to add to that?
Yes.
Yeah, then go ahead, Michael. Just go ahead.
No, I'm just echoing what she's saying. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
What Ekaterina is saying.
Okay. Katja,
yeah, and I think it's very important, since we all have a lack of good talent. It's also not only to educate the good talent and the engineers of the future, but also to be attractive as an ecosystem, to keep them in this region and the whole families and all the situation around. So I'm very happy in Brainport. It's a very international climate, and a lot of international schools and different educational organizations, and a lot of companies to work for, from an OEM up to the whole supply chain. But to be attractive as region and for international talent, and that we compete all together. So we have to look what are the signatures of a certain region to attract the talent you are especially successful in. So for us, it's about system integration, for example. The Netherlands are quite good in that, and that's something what for me is very important.
Thank you so much. So having those attractive regions as your home base, but then following the Team Europe approach. Thank you. So what we've now spoken a lot about like regions. What we've also a little bit touched upon in particular, because you have this focus on robotics, is also, well, different topics, different markets, different industries, different problems, and I think when we look at like the big challenges we're all confronted with, be it climate change, digitalization, the pandemic, and unfortunately also perhaps more international conflicts than we hoped for, at least a while back. I guess we in the panel, we all agree that we need great innovative ideas to tackle those challenges. I hope that also you all in the room and at home share this thought. But now I would be curious, what can we really do to do that, to tackle these challenges? And I think it's always kind of a balance that we need to find of having innovators innovate, but also having innovators thinking about these challenges. Katja, perhaps you could start and tell us a little bit, do you set any specific focus areas? Do you have any specific big challenges you want to make your talents aware of and work on? So how do you deal with this balance?
So we are working on with the companies in this region. So we had a lot of to do with the climate change, or the mobility questions, or the high-tech challenges. And our aim is really to build this organization and to speed up how we can think outside in, and then dedicate our research, but also stop things doing which are not successful. So normally we are in Holland are not that good in. We are very good in starting, but with stopping, it's also a part of entrepreneurship, of course. So acceleration, multidisciplinary, but crossover innovation are very essential for me to solve these challenges, but also set the challenges as the starting point for defining your research, and not the other way around. So sometimes we are innovating and then looking who is paying for that or not, and who is waiting on this. But thinking outside in, and building your organizations around that, and also bringing this entrepreneurial spirit in our organizations, I think that's the right way to go.
Very interesting, and well, I totally feel you. I always, as an entrepreneurship professor, I like encouraging. I would hate to discourage.
Yeah.
So I think this is a pain that many of us share. Michael, what are your thoughts on specific topics, challenges that perhaps we would want our entrepreneurial talents to work on?
I think actually that our students and our researchers are very much focused on these grand problems already. And I see, especially among students, I mean, they are all very enthused about SDGs and so on, and work very specifically on that. So I see a good trend there already, actually.
And why do you think is
I
that?
think it's natural.
Is it? Okay.
I mean, if you are just a little bit engaged in society and so on, you will go that way.
So that's a very positive,
it
optimistic view. And
right.
well, but I also think, I mean, from just what I've experienced at TUM also, I know that when I started, SDGs weren't something that my students wanted to learn as much on, and now I have like a big session on sustainable entrepreneurship. So I share.
And students are front runners in that. They are in front of researchers, I think.
Yeah, perhaps. Because still young, enthusiastic, right. And also having to live on the planet longer than
that's right. They have a bigger stake in it.
Thank you for being so optimistic. Ekaterina, for you, I will actually almost ask you the opposite perspective, right? So you're part of this ecosystem, and of course now you found your path, and we don't want to distract you from the path, but I would just be curious, what would be your opinion? To what extent should entrepreneurial talents just, go on and do whatever they want to do? And to what extent should they be given some guidance? What are problems worth pursuing?
It's an interesting question, I think, and it's also very important. So I believe that entrepreneurship can be taught. But of course, there are, I would say, two types of people: those who are aware of entrepreneurship, of some ideas just because they are aware, because of their nature, and those who are at some point of time maybe see some topics or have heard about some topics and then develop their ideas. Why I think it's very important, because I always knew that I wanted to have my company, but I was never thinking in a matter of innovation or entrepreneurship. I just couldn't imagine, not because I didn't want it, but I just didn't have it in my mind. And then I think this was, the biggest advantage of my master course here, that I came across TUM, Unternehmertum, and then I also saw a lecture. Back then it was another startup from Munich, Park here, and the founder was describing his path. And that's how I actually thought about it for the first time and started to search for infrastructure, for other ideas inside of our university. So I do believe that some guidance is needed, but of course I think that people should discover their passion on their own And I also think that all of these challenges that we are living today, problems, there are problems, but there are also opportunities for the startups and for the entrepreneurs. And I've seen many startups who work on environmental aspects, on health aspects, and I also think it's truly inspiring that people try to change the world. So yes, I think that the starting guidance is needed, but I also think that after some point, the market should just decide whether this idea is needed or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much. So we have lots of positive thoughts already. I think we also have heard about lots of success stories of ecosystems. And still, when we look at the big picture, what we see is in Europe that we have amazingly strong research institutions when we look into publications and inventions per se. But then when we look at the actual exploitation of this innovation, then perhaps sometimes Europe is leaking behind when it comes, well, you said it right at the start, VC money that is available, in general, unicorn startups, but also when we look into corporations and the money that they spend on R&D, research and development, then I still think, despite all our positive spirit, there might be room for improvement. And while I'm not sure how much will be heard, I think to round up the panel, it's time to generate a wish list. And so I invite each and every one of you to bring up one wish, how you feel that politics should change, how there could be new approaches to fostering the commercialization of innovation to tackle this big challenge. So now it's time to make a wish. I don't know who wants to start. Michael.
Yeah, I have one wish. I think we should also look a little bit at ourselves, the universities, and as you mentioned, the merit system at university is very much based on quotations and inventions and not on startups and entrepreneurship. And we should change here. Somehow we should build it even more into our university ecosystems.
So changing the incentives?
Yes.
A very good approach?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Katja?
Yeah, I have also the wish to rethink there, so every euro can be spent once, of course, and to have the good doubling in that, so learn fast and really also stop with things which are not working out and concentrate and focus more on the biggest challenge we face in the future.
Very interesting. So again, encouraging, but perhaps sometimes also discouraging. Yeah. Thank you so much. Ekaterina, your wish.
If I only could have one wish, I would say I wish that people in Europe will be more risk-taking, not only customers, but entrepreneurs and investors. Then perhaps we would have more unicorns, because we really have to catch up with the US and soon China. Yeah. So this is my wish.
So we had, you brought up this change in culture. So for you, that also would be an important part. And perhaps all those building blocks work together, that we have more incentives, that we know who to encourage, and perhaps also when to stop a project. And eventually, this will then lead to the culture change that all of us really want to see. And I think that's a fantastic final closing remark of this panel, because I hope that all of us, as we're here, will contribute to this change in culture, that we are really considering ourselves as the innovators and as the shapers of tomorrow. So thank you so much for exploring with me this exciting topic and for offering all the success stories. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much to all of you. Thanks.